Hey guys, it's Victor here, and these are some techniques to help you deepen your voice pre-testosterone. First, a few notes. Firstly, I'll only be addressing your speaking voice in this video. I'll make another video later on to talk about singing voices. Secondly, I am not a professional vocal coach. And finally, this is the most important one. If something is sore or if something hurts, you need to stop. When it comes to matters of the voice, you are the only person that can feel what your voice feels like, and so the responsibility for staying safe when doing vocal training lies entirely on you. It is so easy to damage your voice, and that's why it's so important to make sure that when you vocal train, you train safely. Throughout all of these exercises, we will want to remain as relaxed as possible throughout our mouth, throat, neck, and body. If for any reason something begins to hurt, stop immediately, take a rest, and consider seeking professional vocal coaching. When beginning vocal training, I think it's important to have a goal in mind. So rather than thinking arbitrarily that I don't want my voice to sound like it is, it's more constructive to have that endpoint in mind. What do you want your voice to sound like, rather than what do you not want your voice to sound like? For people with traditionally feminine voices who are trying to move their voice to a traditionally more masculine voice, there are usually a common set of goal characteristics. Now, everyone has different goals. Everyone has a different dream voice, a different ideal voice. For example, maybe I want to sound like Freddie Mercury, but you want to sound like Josh Groban. These are two very different voices. They're both still male voices, but they are different goals, and we would likely train our voices in different ways to achieve a sound more like Freddie Mercury or a sound more like Josh Groban. Some common goal characteristics include the following: a deeper pitch, a depth of tone, power, resonance, things like this. If these aren't your goal characteristics, that's okay, but these are the characteristics I will be steering us toward through the course of this video. Before we get into any specific vocal techniques, we first need to talk about one very important thing. That is breath support. If you're a singer, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. The fundamental basis for having a good sound, whether that is a high-pitched sound or a low-pitched sound or a resonant sound or a quiet sound, is breath support. Over the course of the next minute or so, I'm going to be teaching you the very basic fundamentals of breath support. If you're a singer and you already know these things, you can skip to the timestamp that I'll leave on the screen somewhere. Whether you're a pop singer or an opera singer or a professional lecturer, you cannot have a good vocal sound without proper breath support, regardless of what that sound is. So, what is proper breath support? Well, when you think about breathing deeply, do you think about breathing high or breathing low? After you've come back from a pretty intense run, you're probably with lots of shoulder motion, right? We're breathing up high, but that's not really a supported breath. As singers, we know that our breath support comes very deep. So it comes from this motion of the diaphragm moving down to draw air into the lungs. It's kind of like a pump. So if you visualize your diaphragm moving down as you breathe in and moving back up as you breathe out, this could be a helpful visualization. So if you put your hands on your stomach, right around your belly button, and you breathe in, you should feel your stomach come out as you breathe in and go back in as you breathe out. You can also put your hands on your sides or around your back, and you want to really feel that opening up of all of the space in your abdomen section as you breathe in. As we take these deep breaths, that is going to allow for this breath support, which is so key in producing a full and supported sound. Breath support is something that many vocal professionals work on over the course of their entire careers. It's not something that is easily learned overnight, and it's definitely not something that comes naturally to us without practice. I would encourage you to practice breath support, to be conscious of where your breath is going, whether you're breathing into your chest or whether you're breathing into your stomach, whether that's as you're falling asleep at night as you're laying down, or when you're just walking around the park. Also notice that I am standing. Standing makes a huge difference when it comes to breath support. There are ways to have good posture and supported breath when you're sitting, but standing really just helps naturally open us up. And with that, let's get into some specific techniques. First, let's talk about pitch. This is probably the first thing that comes to mind when you think about deepening your voice or making your voice more traditionally masculine. However, in my opinion, it's the least important of all of the things I'm going to talk about in this video. However, since I know people really have pitch at the front of their mind, I want to address it first. Everyone is born with a certain range of sounds that they can produce in terms of pitch. Now, that range changes when people hit adolescence, regardless of what your assigned sex at birth was, regardless of what kind of puberty you had. For the assigned male at birth puberty, that range significantly drops. For the assigned female at birth puberty, that range also drops, but not as much. This is why children have a higher pitched voice than adults in general. Within that range of pitches that we can produce, our speaking voice usually lands somewhere around the middle. Now, what we can attempt to do with vocal training in terms of pitch is we can attempt to move our natural speaking register from somewhere in the middle to somewhere on the lower end. Now, especially for pre-testosterone assigned female at birth people, it is very important to not speak in vocal fry. Vocal fry is basically the very, very bottom of your range, and it kind of grates your vocal cords against each other. It is extraordinarily unhealthy and will result long-term in damage to the voice. Now, you can experiment on your own with what register you're able to speak in. You can try by singing from where you normally would be to singing a little bit lower and then trying to speak out of that register. But I would really, really implore you to not push it too far in terms of pitch. We all have our natural boundaries, and while we can extend that boundary a little bit with some training, it is difficult to do well on your own safely. Because there is a biological limit to the lowness of the pitch that you can produce pre-testosterone, this is why I think that addressing pitch is really of secondary importance to these other things I'm going to talk about. Now, there are some other attributes to stereotypically masculine voices that we may want to attain. These include power, resonance, and depth of sound. So how do we attain power, resonance, and depth of sound? The first answer is the easy one: breath support. We talked about it earlier, and it is just as true now as it was 2 minutes ago when we talked about it the first time. Breath support. If you are making a supported sound, you will naturally be more resonant and more grounded in that sound. Something that I think a lot of people find is that when they're speaking in kind of their natural middle register, that they have sort of a natural resonance about them. But when they start trying to move that register a little bit lower, that resonance disappears a little bit. So how can we reintroduce the resonance at a lower register? In order to understand this, we need to understand the timbre of sounds that you can make with your voice. Timbre is spelled a little funny, it's T-I-M-B-R-E. Now, timbre is usually measured on a scale of dark to bright. So a dark sound or a mellow sound might sound pretty covered and hollow. It sounds very nice in maybe a choral setting. A dark sound or a covered sound or a mellow sound may also be the type of sound you're able to produce in the shower that you're not able to produce elsewhere. It has that kind of round, beautiful, bell-like resonance. On the other hand, we have brightness of sound. Now, a bright sound would sound very, almost nasally. It's very forward, and this is where we get our volume. So we don't want to get our volume by pushing our voices forward. We want to get our volume by having more nasal resonance in our sound. So if I were to speak in a totally covered, dark, mellow sound, it wouldn't sound very good. I would take all of the resonance out of the sound, and it would be quieter and more covered. It's not bad, but it's not what you want to hear in a voice. On the other hand, if we go for a very forward, bright, nasally resonant sound, and we take all of the mellowness out of it, then we would get a really, really annoying nasally sound that sounds like this, and no one wants to hear anyone talk like this all day long every day, so this is not what you want your voice to be. So we want a happy medium that combines both a dark sound and a bright sound together. So how do we do this? To get the dark sound, we need space. We need space in our mouth, in our throat. We need space in the breath that we take. We want to think of our voice as filling all of the space that we have in our body. And then we want to project that forward. Then to add the brightness to it, we want to think of a direction. We want to think of a point in space that we are throwing a dart at, that we are throwing our voice at, then the combination of having both that open, mellow, dark space, as well as the direction for the brightness and the resonance, that's going to give us this not unpleasant sound, like maybe either of the extremes were. What happens when we start to go from our natural register and start bringing it down is a lot of people find that they end up more on the dark end of the spectrum. This results in a quieter sound, which is often not what we want. We want to sound louder and project more. This also correlates a little bit with a confident sound or a powerful sound. So as we go down in our pitch, we need to ensure that we are adding that forward, bright nasal resonance to our sound. Now, this is easier said than done, and if you have had vocal training or training in any kind of voice or singing, this will be much easier for you than probably someone who's never heard any of these kinds of terms in their life before. It does take time, it does take practice, and it does take a certain understanding of your own biology and what things feel like, which is only attained through time and practice. So our steps so far are, 1, try to move our speaking pitch from the center of our range to more of the bottom of our range. Step 2, open up the sound to make it bigger with that dark, mellow openness. 3rd, add the brightness into the sound so that we can project, sound confident, and have that powerful sound. So what comes next? Finally, we can talk about macro scale, overall sentence structure, way that we speak types of things. Traditionally, feminine voices tend to be more sing-songy. They will vary pitch quite often throughout the course of their sentences. This is something that I do naturally, having been raised and socialized as female, and it's something that I'm not too upset about. Like, I'm pretty okay with having more of that sing-songy tone to it. I think it's quite nice, and it doesn't bother me and to me, it doesn't feel like it undermines my masculinity. So it's okay with me. Some people may be less happy with that. A traditionally more masculine voice may be less sing-songy. It will have more of a monotone throughout the sentence. Furthermore, a lot of traditionally female voices tend to do what's called devoicing at the end of the sentence. This is when the last 1 or 2 syllables that you say kind of drop off in pitch. They become quieter and you can't really hear them as well. I do it on almost every single one of my sentences, and I realize that for me it's a bad habit that I'm trying to improve. If you replay basically any sentence in this video, I'm sure you will hear devoicing at the end of each of those sentences. Instead, you can attempt to ensure that the last 1 or 2 syllables of your sentence are at the same pitch and with the same authority and power as the rest of your sentence. You can also focus on having that more even continuity of sound across your sentence rather than having a more sing-songy way of speaking. Some of the best ways to practice these techniques are through reading aloud. If you pick up a book, any book, and just start reading aloud, and listen to your voice, listen to what it sounds like. You can record it and play it back to hear what others might hear in your voice. And then you can kind of try to fine-tune what you like or don't like and try different things to see what sounds good to you. Now, none of these vocal techniques are going to come naturally. You're going to have to train yourself to know what it feels like to make the sound that you want to make. And then you're going to have to consciously implement that technique as you go about speaking in your day-to-day life. Eventually, this may become more natural, but especially at first, you're going to have to consciously and actively think about it every time you want to use your trained voice. If you're interested in going farther in your vocal training, I would highly recommend a vocal coach. This is a person that will be able to help you navigate your own voice safely so that you're not doing any damage. They will also be able to provide professional expertise on various techniques that you can do or try or practice. I hope the tips that you found in this video were helpful. If they were, please let me know. If you have questions, also please let me know, and I'll try to make another video to answer them. I do fully intend to make a video similar to this, but for singing voices. So if that's something you'd be interested in, please let me know, and I'll let you know when the video comes out. Best of luck in your vocal training, and don't forget to stay safe and hydrate well. Until next time.